The Galactic Education Exchange Program was supposed to be humanity's biggest achievement in interstellar diplomacy. Decades of peaceful interactions with various species had culminated in an agreement for cultural exchange, allowing humans to attend alien academies, while students from distant star systems could experience Earth. For those chosen, it was an honor, a chance to experience an entirely new way of life. For the Tursk, however, it was a confusing ordeal. The Tursk were a highly intelligent species, known for their rigid logic and lack of emotional expression. They hailed from the planet Volrin, a sterile world where even the seasons followed exact and predictable patterns. Their culture valued efficiency above all else, viewing emotions as unnecessary distractions. The Tursk were not cold or cruel, but their understanding of relationships was purely transactional. If you provided value, you were kept around. If not, you were replaced. This made friendships as humans understood them an alien concept. Thalin, the first Tursk exchange student, arrived on Earth full of curiosity. The Tursk had no concept of gender in the human sense. They were assigned to a university in New York, where they would study alongside human students. To Thalin, humans seemed chaotic and unpredictable, but fascinating. Their conversations were full of illogical banter, often with no clear purpose, and they seemed to enjoy spending time together without any measurable benefit. Thalin could not understand it, but they were determined to learn. "Thalin, you ready for class?" Jace's voice boomed from the dorm room doorway. Jace was Thalin's human roommate, a loud, excitable biology major who had taken it upon himself to show the alien student the ropes. "Ready," Thalin replied, their voice calm and even. They didn't understand why Jace insisted on speaking in such an overly loud manner. The volume did not increase comprehension. In fact, it made things more difficult. As they walked across campus, Jace's friends joined them: Lily, a sarcastic history major with quick wit, and Parker, an engineering student who was always fiddling with some broken gadget. The trio chatted away about something called midterms, a concept Thalin had studied but didn't quite grasp emotionally. Humans seemed to invest so much anxiety into their exams, even though their future success had more to do with continued effort over time than a single test. But today, their conversation veered into another direction. "So Lily, are we still on for game night this Friday?" Parker asked, twirling a small wrench between his fingers. Lily rolled her eyes, but there was a smirk on her face. "Yeah, I'll bring the snacks. Try not to blow up the microwave again." That was one time Parker protested, and technically it was an improvement. Thalin frowned. "This game night you speak of, what is its purpose?" Lily turned to Thalin with a grin. "To have fun, of course." "And this fun? How does it improve your academic or personal goals?" The trio exchanged amused looks. Jace clapped Thalin on the shoulder, nearly making them stumble. "It doesn't. That's the point. We're just hanging out, having a good time." Thalin blinked. They had heard the phrase hanging out before, but hadn't paid it much mind. You will gather together, consume food, and engage in non-essential activities, all for no other reason than to be in each other's company. "Exactly," Parker said, now smiling. "We do it all the time. You should join us." Thalin felt an odd discomfort. "I am uncertain how I would contribute to this event. My skills do not lie in leisure." Jace grinned, nudging them. "No worries, buddy. You're part of the crew now. You'll pick it up." Thalin considered this. Part of the crew. It wasn't the first time Jace had used this phrase, and they had begun to notice a pattern. These humans spent significant time together, often with no clear objective. Yet they seemed to prioritize each other, helping and supporting one another in ways that didn't always make logical sense. It was inefficient, to say the least. Thalin could not fathom the purpose of these bonds. As the week went by, Thalin observed their human companions closely, cataloging their behaviors. Lily, Parker, and Jace often teased each other in ways that, to Thalin, seemed almost hostile. Yet, there was never true malice behind their words. Jace constantly borrowed things from Parker without asking, which would have been unacceptable in Tursk society, but Parker didn't seem to mind. Lily often rolled her eyes at Jace's antics, yet she always showed up when it mattered, like when Jace lost his wallet and Lily spent hours helping him retrace his steps until they found it. It was baffling. In Tursk society, such inefficiencies would never be tolerated. Relationships were strictly pragmatic. You kept those around you who offered the most value. But here, among these humans, value seemed irrelevant. Jace, Lily, and Parker exchanged jokes and favors with no clear expectation of repayment. They forgave mistakes, overlooked weaknesses, and spent time together simply because they enjoyed each other's company. On Friday, Thalen reluctantly joined the group for game night. The activity itself was a puzzle something called Mario Kart, which involved guiding digital vehicles around a track. Thalen found the controls imprecise and the premise ridiculous, but they could see the joy in their companions' faces. They whooped and laughed with every near miss and accidental victory, throwing popcorn at each other and shouting playful insults. Thalen, sitting in the middle of it all, tried to make sense of the situation. Jace leaned over during a break and offered Thalen a controller. "You should try it. Come on, it's fun." "I am unsure how I would perform well in this activity," Thalen replied. "Doesn't matter," Jace insisted. "We're just having a good time." Thalen hesitated, but the others cheered them on, and soon enough they were gripping the controller, guiding their character around the track. They were terrible at it, of course crashing into walls and falling off ledges. But each time, instead of frustration, their friends laughed and encouraged them. Even Lily, who was normally the most sarcastic, clapped them on the back after a particularly disastrous turn. "You're getting the hang of it," she teased. Thalen stared at the screen, confused by the warm feeling that crept through them. There was no logic to it. They had not succeeded, and yet they were being praised, included. It was inefficient, yet somehow it felt ... right. As the weeks passed, Thalen grew more accustomed to these human interactions. They still found many of their friends' behaviors puzzling, but they began to understand that the value of friendship, for humans, lay in something deeper than simple utility. It was about shared experiences, about knowing that in a chaotic universe, there were others who would stand by you, no matter what. And then something happened that shook Thalen's understanding of everything. One evening, as they were leaving a late-night study session, they received a panicked message from Jace. It was garbled, broken up by static, but the urgency was clear. Thalen ... help ... Lily ... The message cut out. Thalen's pulse quickened. Without a second thought, they sprinted across campus, their mind racing. Jace was in trouble, and somehow Lily was involved. Their usual logical thought process was overridden by a sudden, strange instinct. Their friend needed them. When they arrived at the location Jace had pinged, they found him in an alleyway near one of the off-campus bars. Jace was bruised and bleeding, his face pale. Parker was kneeling beside him, trying to stop the bleeding from a deep cut on Jace's arm. Thalen, Parker shouted, his voice frantic. "We need to get him to a hospital." "What happened?" Thalen asked, moving to help. Lily ... She got into a fight with some guys at the bar. They were harassing some girl, and she stepped in. Jace tried to pull her out of it, and they jumped him. Lily, impulsive and fiery, had always been protective. But this ... this was beyond recklessness. It was madness. Thalen couldn't understand why Jace had gotten involved, why any of this had happened. But there was no time to analyze. They needed to act. "Call for emergency services," Thalen said, their voice steady despite the situation. As Parker called, Thalen knelt beside Jace, pressing their hands to his wound to help stop the bleeding. Jace's face was twisted in pain, but he managed a weak grin. "Thalen ... glad you're here, buddy." Thalen blinked, staring down at him. Buddy. The word held weight now. Before, it had been a strange label, something humans used casually. But now, in this moment, it felt different. They realized that this human, this loud, unpredictable human, was not just a companion for convenience. He was ... important. There was no logical explanation, no equation that could define it. But it was true. "Stay still," Thalen said, their voice softer than usual. Minutes later, the ambulance arrived, and the medics took over. As they loaded Jace onto a stretcher, Thalen stood beside Parker, their minds spinning. This wasn't like the quiet, predictable life on Volren. This was chaos, illogical and dangerous. Yet, despite everything, Thalen felt a deep sense of connection to these humans. They had leaped into danger for each other, not because it was rational, but because it was right. The next day, Thalen visited Jace in the hospital. His injuries were minor, though the cut on his arm required stitches. Lily sat beside him, her arm in a sling from a dislocated shoulder, but she was grinning defiantly. You're both lucky you didn't get hurt worse, Thalin said, standing at the foot of the bed. Your actions were reckless. Yeah, well, Jace chuckled, we stick together. That's what friends do. Thalin stared at him for a long moment. Friends, they repeated slowly. You risked yourself for no personal gain, merely because Lily was in danger. Of course, Jace replied, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. That's what loyalty is, Thalin. You watch out for the people you care about. Loyalty. The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Thalin had read about the concept, but they had never truly understood it until now. Loyalty wasn't about efficiency or value. It wasn't about what someone could do for you. It was about standing by someone even when it made no logical sense, even when it was dangerous or irrational. Thalin stood by the hospital bed, processing Jace's words. Loyalty. It was a concept that defied every principle of Tursk culture, yet here, among these humans, it was the very foundation of their relationships. Loyalty was what drove Lily to step into danger to protect a stranger. It was why Jace had rushed in to help, despite the obvious risk to himself. It was why Parker had been there too, ready to drag them both out of harm's way, without a second thought. Loyalty didn't care about logic or practicality. It was something deeper, something humans seemed to understand instinctively. For the Tursk, who thrived on precision and order, it was a mystery. Yet as Thalin stood there, watching their friends exchange smiles and jokes even in the face of injury, they realized it was more than just a human quirk. It was beautiful. Thalin, you okay? Parker asked, noticing the alien student's uncharacteristic silence. Thalin blinked, snapping out of their thoughts. I am processing. Jace chuckled from his hospital bed. That's the Thalin we know. Always thinking. Lily smirked, though the movement tugged at her injured shoulder. You don't have to overthink everything, you know. Some things, like friendship, you just feel. The Tursk didn't feel in the way humans did. Their emotions, if they had any, were deeply buried beneath layers of logic and practicality. But Thalin was beginning to realize that feelings weren't weaknesses. They were connections, threads that tied people together. They had always thought that friendships were transactional, based on mutual benefit. But here, with these humans, it was clear that friendships were built on something far stronger: loyalty, trust, and a willingness to put others before yourself. Thalin shifted awkwardly, their usual confidence in their understanding of the world suddenly shaken. I do not fully comprehend it, they admitted. But I believe I am beginning to feel what you mean. Jace grinned, wincing slightly as the movement tugged at his stitches. That's good enough for me, Thalin. As the days passed and Jace recovered, life began to return to normal, or as normal as it could be when living among humans. Thalin found themselves more attuned to the subtleties of their friends' interactions. The teasing that once seemed pointless now felt like a form of affection. The moments of silence, when they all sat together without speaking, were no longer uncomfortable. There was a quiet understanding between them, an unspoken bond that didn't need to be justified by logic or reason. One evening, not long after Jace was discharged from the hospital, the group gathered for another game night. This time, Thalin took the controller without hesitation. They were still terrible at the game, but it didn't matter. Jace was laughing beside them. Lily was tossing popcorn at Parker, and the room was filled with the warmth of camaraderie. Thalin was a part of it now, not as an outsider observing human behavior, but as a member of the group. Midway through the evening, during a break from the game, Thalin found themselves sitting quietly with Jace on the dorm room's worn-out couch. The others were arguing good-naturedly over what snack to get, but Thalin's focus was on Jace, who was absently tracing the stitches on his arm. You never explained why you did it, Thalin said softly. Why you risked yourself for Lily. Jace looked up, surprised by the question. Then he shrugged, as if the answer was obvious. Because she's my friend. I didn't even think about it. I just acted. But it was dangerous. You could have been hurt much worse. Yeah, maybe Jace admitted, but if you care about someone, you don't just leave them to deal with stuff on their own. You step up, no matter what. Thalin considered this, their gaze steady. And you would do the same for Parker. For me. Jace's expression softened. Of course I would. You're one of us, Thalin. You're part of the crew, remember. There it was again, that phrase. Part of the crew. Thalen had heard it so many times now, but it was only in this moment that they truly understood its meaning. It wasn't just a casual statement, it was a promise. A commitment to be there, to support and protect one another, no matter what. I did not understand the concept of friendship before I came here, Thalen admitted. On Volrin, relationships are based on mutual benefit. Once that benefit ends, so does the relationship. But here with you, I see now that friendship is not about what you can gain, it is about what you are willing to give. Jace smiled, his eyes warm. Yeah, it's about being loyal to the people who matter to you, even when it doesn't make sense. Thalen felt a strange sensation in their chest, something unfamiliar but not unpleasant. It was the closest thing to emotion they had ever experienced, and they realized it was tied to these humans, their friends. I am grateful to have met you, Jace, and Lily, and Parker. Hey, we're glad to have you too, Jace replied. Even if you suck at Mario Kart. Thalen tilted their head, their expression serious. I will improve. Jace laughed, a loud, joyous sound that filled the room. I have no doubt. The night continued, and Thalen found themselves fully immersed in the experience, not just as an observer but as a participant. They laughed, they joked, and for the first time, they understood why humans valued these moments of connection so deeply. It wasn't about efficiency or productivity. It was about loyalty, about knowing that no matter how chaotic or unpredictable life became, there were people who would stand by you. Weeks turned into months, and Thalen's time on Earth began to draw to a close. The Galactic Education Exchange Program had been set for a single Earth year, and Thalen's return to Volrin was rapidly approaching. The thought of leaving filled them with a strange unease, a feeling they now recognized as something akin to sadness. On the night before Thalen's departure, Jace, Lily, and Parker threw them a farewell party. It was a small gathering, just the four of them, but it was filled with laughter, shared memories, and the quiet, unspoken understanding that this was more than just a goodbye. Thalen had come to Earth as a student of human culture, but they were leaving as something more, a friend. As the evening wound down and the others started to drift off to sleep, Thalen found themselves standing by the window, looking out at the stars. They would soon be among those stars again, returning to the logical, ordered world of Volrin. But Earth had changed them. Their time here had taught them that there was value in things that couldn't be quantified. Loyalty, friendship, and love were not weaknesses, they were strengths. Jace appeared beside them, his hands in his pockets. You're gonna miss this place, huh? Thalen nodded slowly. Yes, more than I anticipated. Well, just remember, Jace said with a grin. No matter how far away you are, you're still part of the crew. That's not gonna change. Thalen turned to him, their voice steady. I understand that now. And they did. For the first time in their life, Thalen truly understood what it meant to be part of something greater than oneself. It wasn't about logic or efficiency. It was about loyalty, about standing by the people who mattered, even when there was no benefit, even when it didn't make sense. As they boarded the ship the next day, ready to return to Volrin, Thalen looked back one last time at the humans who had changed their life in ways they never could have imagined. Jace, Lily, and Parker stood at the edge of the launch pad, waving and shouting their farewells. Thalen raised a hand in return, a small smile tugging at the corners of their mouth. They didn't need to say goodbye. They were part of the crew now. Always. And that was something even a Tursk could understand.